Leading with a Limp, Chapter 6. Quite a chapter. The problem of complexity is that all leaders see through a glass darkly. And that subtitle comes off of a verse from the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 when he says, we can't see clearly right now. It's like looking in a mirror, kind of disfigured. In ancient world, mirrors weren't as clear. You just can't see things clearly. Something's there, but we don't have the whole picture. And complex situations kind of give us that blurred or incomplete vision. So today, during our lunchtime, we ran through just a quick summary of the chapter. Not all the things in the chapter, a rich chapter as always, but to begin with, not all complexity is complex. It makes a good point that sometimes we as leaders say, oh, this is so complex, it's going to be so hard, when actually we know exactly what needs to be done, we just don't want to do it. And so I say, oh, this is complex. I've done that. I can tend to do that. If we know something needs to be done, it's actually not complex. We just need to do it. So let's not use complexity as an excuse, because it can be. The other thing complexity does is when a complex situation comes to us, there's competing grids. In other words, we have a grid, a leadership grid that we're using, that we filter everything through, and it's worked for us up until now. It's worked just fine. But then a complex situation comes and realize the way I'm making my decisions, it's not going to work this time, and I have to get a new grid, and that's confusing. I mean, I've talked with guys dealing with supply chain issues, and they said, well, before the current supply chain issues, we had a grid dealing with supply chain stuff. It worked this way. It worked great. It worked fine. And now, so complexity does that. We have to find a new grid. It can be challenging. Then complexity brings a lot of ambiguity. We're not quite sure what really is going on. And he asks a simple question, what am I not seeing in this situation? Because sometimes we just think we know, and actually we don't know yet. There's things we need to figure out and explore before we can continue on. I've realized at age 61, I work in a multiple staff, which is great. A number of my staff is younger than me. It's really helpful. I don't see things the way they do. And so it's great to get their conversation input on things. Uncertainty. This is a great question in the book. How would you feel about this situation, this complex situation you're in, if you knew in advance that it would not only turn out well, but that one day would be seen as one of your greatest accomplishments? Because when complexity comes our way, we tend to build defenses, or we tend to be motivated by fear, right? I don't want to fail. He says, well, just replace that sense of fear with hope. What if this is the best thing that's ever going to happen to you? We had an interesting situation here at Cornerstone. We had for 2.5 years, been discussing at the staff level how we could go from 2 Sunday morning services to 3, because we needed the space. The second contemporary service, the second service, was too full sometimes. 90% full, that's too full. There's no spot for new people to come. So I thought, but the more we talked about it, you change this, it affects that. There's Sunday school, there's musical stuff, there's worship team. It's just and so we get everything up on the board, the whiteboard, and we go, I don't think we can do it. Couldn't quite figure out a way to make it work. COVID hits. Complex situation. From the outside, we didn't have anything to do with this. All of a sudden, we went to 3 services because we needed to space people out. Overnight. And was really helpful. So that uncertainty of a new situation really worked to our advantage. Interesting. Rigidity, the character flaw of dogmatism. I'm a dogmatist if I know the right answer before you ask me the question. I just know. I don't need any information. I don't need to ask questions. I'm not going to listen to your opinions or ideas. I just know. And the problem with being a dogmatist or being rigid is we limit the range of options for problem solving to a very narrow band, just the ones that are in our brain. Then he talks about being foolish in a good way, in that we go, you know what? I don't know everything. I can't lead well in and of myself. I may not be able to make decisions the way I used to make decisions with my old grid. I'm going to have to open myself up and go, hey, you know what? I need to navigate this complex crisis in a new way. And that leads us into depth as a leader. Deeper and deeper in ability to actually lead through complex situations. And then creativity. He's an interesting sentence. I'll just read it. A leader fool blesses complexity. Isn't complexity great? Because he knows it will humble the team. Complexity does that. Expose their idols of control. I want to fix it and fix it fast and be in charge. It's an idol. And then invite them to both listen with greater depth and open their hearts to what God is doing. And complexity does that. It actually helps a team grow in a secular sense, but also in a spiritual sense. Complexity can do that. So, and then we, of course, went around the table and talked about questions. First one has to do with the past. Think about the most difficult firing decisions you've made. What primary factors made that decision and implementation complex? What did you tell staff about the change, and what were primary reactions? And, you know, it's interesting to listen to discussions around table. Oftentimes it seems to me that firing decisions are pretty simple. We just think they're complex. In hindsight, they're not. It just wasn't a good fit. And the person, for their sake and for your organization's sake, just needed to move on. But those are hard decisions to make, aren't they? And then what do you tell staff and how they react? So we talked a little bit of that around tables. Then we talked about a time when we're in a complex situation and we just didn't want any more new information. We just wanted to kind of hide our head in the sand and make the decision about a complex situation based on information we've just used before. It doesn't go well. Get the decision made, sometimes can make it really fast, but it's not going to go well. So we kind of looked at our past, how we dealt with firing people, the complexities of it, sometimes the simplicity of it. And then, you know, if we got in the habit of just kind of closing ourselves off from the more information that we really need. Then we talked about the present. But thinking of a time when you faced a leadership challenge and initially you just saw, you know, a box of information about this big. And then what did you do or what are you doing to help get more information, more input, more insight so your information box is a lot bigger and the decision is going to be better? And then kind of the opposite. Was there a time when you realized, you know, you thought you had all the data and some new information comes in and just blows everything apart? Got way more complex. New information. And what caused you to be open to that, or if you weren't, what caused you to close yourself off, and what happened as a result of that? So good discussions at table just about being honest about how open we are or not to information that we actually really need. And do we listen if people give us advice? Do we listen if people critique us or criticize us? Can we put aside the defensiveness and just listen to the information? Because there may be some things here that are going to be really helpful for us. Talked about that. Then we talked about the future, and again, just our own sense of being a leader. If we knew in advance that our decisions would meet with success and that our strategies would result in the growth and health of our organization, what would change about the way you lead? In other words, what if there was the element of fear? It just dissipated. It wasn't in our brain anymore. We thought, hopefully, about leading and dealing with complex situations and making decisions and navigating the future. And then he asked, what keeps you from leading with that level of confidence? What gets in the way? And one of the things I've learned, actually just in the recent years of my life, is when change needs to happen and it's not happening, I've learned to ask, what's the obstacle? What's in the way? There's something there that's preventing me from moving forward. What is it? And once I know what it is, I can ask God to help me make some progress on there. So what is it for you in your different areas of leadership, could be all the way from home to work to wherever, keeps you from being confident? Not that you're such a great leader, but that as you listen well and are humble and trying to serve God in your leadership, that you'll be able to do a good job as a leader. What is it that gets in the way of that kind of confidence that God asks us to lead with? So good discussion at our table today, and hopefully you've been able to have an internal discussion with yourself, I suppose, but find somebody else just to talk through some of these things with. Anybody else in leadership, they got stories to tell. We've all been through this kind of stuff, and it's good to be honest with each other and helpful and listen. Next week, chapter 8, chapter 7, it's about betrayal, and Dave Moffat's going to be leading us through that. I've got something else going on, so I will have to watch online later. So enjoy the material and keep leading well and keep humble in your leading and enjoy watching God be at work. Catch you next week. Bye.